Welcome to Through the Looking Glass. Today's episode, we're just going to kind of be free-flowing about a couple different things, whatever comes to mind. But before we do that, as always, I'm going to hand it on over to Russ.
Hello, everybody. Welcome back to Through the Looking Glass podcast. Please like, share, subscribe, comment, get all that stuff to us. Join us in our conversations where we just talk about different things every week, sometimes topic, sometimes not so much, where we just free flow like we're going to be today. And come be a part of the conversations. We enjoy having you, and let us know how we're doing. Let's have fun today.
What do we want to start with?
Aliens in Miami.
The big thing with myself is definitely the aliens. That whole situation in Miami, it's a little odd. Just the police response to. So what I read was that there was kids in the mall fighting with sticks and throwing fireworks at each other. Now,
that could have been
I thought I read
mistaken.
somewhere they had knives too.
I didn't read anywhere about knives.
Yeah,
but
they could have been responding to.
Or no, I said they were stabbing each other. Maybe it was just stabbing each other with sticks or something.
So there could have been a call for like an active shooter like situation. Or
Maybe that's
something.
why there was that many there. Yeah, they didn't know what was going on, so they called the full force.
Yeah, and Florida isn't gonna fuck around.
Yeah, Florida's kind of crazy.
Yeah.
Could have been somebody on bath salts eating somebody's face, and
Yeah, wasn't that California though?
no, that was
that definitely happened in Florida
Yeah,
once.
Florida
You know
man.
how Florida man is. Florida man don't fuck around, especially on bath salts.
Florida man definitely don't fuck around.
So one thing I can think of to, I guess, actually go with the news narrative that there was kids fighting in the mall and throwing fireworks at one another is, you know, those mortar rounds that launch out of the tube that are even loud coming out of the tube, that boom, boom. So if they had those and were throwing those at each other, I could imagine the police possibly thinking, holy shit,
Real
it's some kind of
explosives.
terrorist attack
Yeah.
or something. Because there's been people on the internet, TikTok, Twitter, saying that they canceled all flights at Miami International that night, that they shut the power down to the area, and the only things flying were the black Miami PD helicopters.
There was
So
a lot of flight cancellations over the last week. Just everything that's going on. I mean, we just got into 2024, and already everything seems kind of nutty. Everything that's going on politically, along with the first, not the first year, but the anniversary of the J6. So things have just been kind of wild. I know there's been the whole Hamas-Israel thing is kind of calming down, but there's been a lot of like bomb threats to different places. There's been a lot of flights that have been canceled. There was just recently like an infrastructure hack somewhere in the Midwest where somebody called in and said, hey, we're hacking your system, and they shut down some things. So,
but I'm
just
wondering
been
with
a lot of
Miami,
odds.
if they did cancel all flights that night, why are they canceling the flights unless they thought that some of those fireworks were due to some kind of terrorist attack? Now, of course, you know, you got all the Twitter and TikTok sleuths and conspiracy theorists saying that it was aliens, it was the Nephilim, it was interdimensional beings, and one person claimed that these beings were just not so much walking, but just like disappearing and reappearing, which if they were interdimensional beings, that could make sense, because even if you think of us three-dimensional beings, if we were to be able to pop into a two-dimensional world where you can only go left, right, back, and forth, those two dimensions, if we jumped up in the air over the two-dimensional person and then landed on the other side of them, it would look to them as if we disappeared and reappeared. So if they were interdimensional, it's like they'd be able to travel into a dimension we can't perceive. I did have questions of, you know, everyone's recording everything nowadays. So if that were the case, where's the actual videos of this happening? But then I did hear a good rebuttal online, someone saying, when you're scared for your life and running for your life, you're not going to pull out your phone and record, you're going to book it.
Yeah.
With a populated enough area like that, there should be something. Because look at like the riots and stuff,
Yeah.
or gunshot. Like people will pull out their phone even when there's gunshots going out and hide behind a car and
I think
Ford.
the way the statistic works is 10% of humans. So if we're thinking about, like, if there's a situation and there's 100 people involved, right? 10% of people will make a decision and act upon that decision, making, correct assumptions. 20% of people will make the wrong decision, and then 70% of people will freeze on the spot. That's typically what you see in any given scenario or situation.
I feel like nowadays you got to call that 60%, and then there's got to be at least 10% of people that are going to be like, "Oh, dude, I got to record this for TikTok."
Well, that's a part
That
of
would be
the
a
that's a
deci-
part
yeah.
of like
That's a-
the 70.
that's a good point.
Or the 20%, the ones that make the wrong decision. Like if there's a large explosion, 10% of people will start fleeing the scene, be like, "Oh my god, I get out of here." 20% people are going to be like pulling out their phones and going towards it, where 70% of people are going to be like, "What's going on? What do I do?"
So it's not going to be like the movies where everybody runs.
After enough time,
Yeah.
I think. But like when we see catastrophe movies like a giant tidal wave coming, you just see people standing there like,
That is true. Yeah,
and
you do
then
see
one
some-
person just starts running, and then everybody's like, "Oh,
yeah,
yeah."
it gets the chain going.
Yeah.
And then there's going to be those people that are like, "Oh man, that's going to get me some clout."
Yeah. Yeah, the last post I ever
Mm.
do, but man, I'm gonna get some likes.
And they're the ones
Yeah.
they're the ones that are going to die
Most likely.
dead.
But yeah, if there was anything going on, there would be videos of it. Unless,
I'm sure
of
there would
course,
be.
there's, as we perceive it, maybe our eyes can see it, but our cameras don't pick it up for some reason. Or who knows?
The other thing that I heard, digging into it too, was that the fireworks or the explosion sounds or whatever they were people actually shooting at the being that they were looking at, and those were the pops being heard, and it wasn't fireworks, which is understandable in Florida because it's an open carry state.
Yeah.
I don't, if it's an interdimensional being or just some weird shadow thing, I don't know what you think shooting at it's going to do. If it can just pop out of nowhere, our weapons probably won't affect it too much. Then there was the other thing I heard where there was these kids messing around with like some spirit box or something, and that opened up a portal to the other
I believe that
dimension
one
where
the
this
most.
thing came through. I don't know. I just think it's strange how the whole situation has arose, and that there was that big of, if it was just kids fighting with sticks, because there's been some reports, I didn't even read about the fireworks, just kids fighting with sticks. Why would kids just fighting with sticks elicit such a large police response unless there was nothing else going on in the whole city of Miami that day?
I think it's just, personally, I think it's just another one of the distraction tactics. I mean, we just had a major drop in the Epstein case, right?
I even
So-
question the Epstein thing, if they're using the Epstein list as a distraction.
If it
And
is,
is the list even real?
That's what I'm
Yes.
questioning. Is it real, or are they just putting names on it that people already assume are going to be on it? They're using that to distract away from other things in politics. I'm so skeptical of everything nowadays.
yeah, of course, skeptical. But from everything that I've seen and heard about the list, is these are the official like court documentations from
Mhm.
Ghislaine's like trial. So there's only one name that's been redacted from the list so far, and everybody's up in a tizzy about different things.
Oh yeah.
So here's a
who was
question,
The one
do
that
you-
made it. It was the director of the FBI, I think, or CIA, one of the two. Something like Christopher or something, which actually fit, and people were like, "That's a name that
Well,
could make sense." Or Christopher
There's
Ray.
there's
That's
so
what it was.
many names that could
Oh
fit.
yeah, there's.
I think from what everybody
hundreds.
figured out is the style of font and the way the name is blacked out.
They
It's
said it was
probably
15 characters.
15 characters,
Yeah,
16 with a space. So there's so many names. There's so many names that could fit.
So
But-
here's a question. Do you think every single name that was released was involved in the weird shit?
No, these were just names on the flight logs.
Yeah, people that were on the plane.
Yeah, because some people were like, "Oh, Stephen Hawking even doing weird shit," and it's like, well, this could somewhat be explained that science that needs funding, they're gonna do what they can to get their funding, and just because he was on a flight log doesn't mean he actually went down there and did any weird
Yeah.
shit. Now, it's also very possible Stephen Hawking was doing some weird shit.
Yeah.
But
If we had the guest log from those who went to the island, that would be a different story. But this is just Lolita Express's flight logs as to who flew on the plane.
Yeah.
They
That could
probably
be
didn't
anywhere.
even. They probably didn't even keep logs of everybody
Did
that
the
was at the
plane?
island. Yeah.
Did the plane ever go anywhere else, or did it always go to the island?
Nope, that was one of his person. I think Epstein had 3 planes, 3 jets. The Lolita Express is the one that is in question to be going to his personal island, and but it's known that he used that plane domestically and internationally everywhere. So
okay.
if he was in New York, his New York City apartment, he would take the Lolita to like Texas or California.
So
or-
the flight log really doesn't do anything at all.
it just tells us who Epstein had connections with.
Yeah.
So, like, if somebody flew on the plane once, that's not a big deal. But if you flew on the plane, let's say, 26 times during your presidential run,
Yeah, I guess it depends on
that's
how many times
kind
your
of
name
a
appeared
big
on there, yeah.
thing.
And if
Like,
Epstein also has a picture or painting of you in a blue dress,
yeah,
that's also
there's
a little sketchy.
That one was weird.
yeah. Plus, from the findings in the documents is like a couple of the girls have said that Bill likes him young, which is
Not surprising.
even weird to like for Epstein to say that this person likes him young. That's kind of I don't know.
That's why I'm even a little
it could
weary
be a
about.
distraction, but it's a good distraction.
That's why I'm even a little weary about Donald Trump because
He's not on the list
I thought his name was on the list.
for one flight.
The one that I came across,
For
his
one
name was
flight.
on there. But he also, when he was talking in that one interview about Epstein, where he said he's been rumored to like women, many of them on the younger side, just as much as I do, or something like that. I mentioned the exact quote in the Epstein episode we did.
Right. No, but the new list that came out, it was the like web link to where it had the different testimonies of the women saying like who was on the plane and whatnot. Those were different links, not just like a physical list of names and stuff like that. As it appeared for Donald Trump, it was the question and answers from the women and the attorneys where it was like, did Donald Trump ever was he ever around you? No. Did Donald Trump ever receive X services from you? No. Things like that. So Donald Trump's name was in the list for the testimonies from these women, but it was never said that he ever flew on the plane. As for people like
You got to remember too,
Clinton.
only one of I think it was only one of the pilots actually kept flight logs.
yeah,
Yeah.
So
only one. So
how many
who knows?
how many people that went on that plane were never even logged?
Yeah. But these were just like testimonies of the women being questioned about different people. Like the Dershowitz guy, they would say.
You can't
yes
convince
or
me
no.
he's not guilty.
Well, the
Maybe,
woman.
maybe you could with some real good evidence, but
Yeah, the woman in question for that one, she ended up coming out and saying, I'm mistaken. So who knows?
I would hope so if the evidence was real.
was she mistaken, or was someone like, "Hey, you're gonna
Coaxing her,
tell him
yeah.
you're mistaken"?
You
No.
Nobody
if,
can
if somebody
really-
had that kind of influence to get to her like that, they would have just killed her. Like, think about it. These women have like all the details about everything that Epstein and Ghislaine were doing. So, it could be another distraction for other things that are going on. Like
Why are the billionaires building
the
bunkers? Why?
and why do we have
Did-
millions of people flowing into our country?
I don't know if the pictures I saw are true or not, if they're the real pictures, but I don't. If that really was Jeff Bezos' bunker, I'm not gonna lie, it looks pretty nice. It looks like a pretty cozy bunker.
I mean, if shit hits the fan,
Well, I mean, rich people have been building bunkers since like the 80s or 90s.
They could have built them thousands of years ago. If you look into Daring,
Oh,
I
and
think
just
it's
refurbished them.
well, no, it's I think it's called Derinkuyu in Turkey. There's this like whole underground like elaborate city that
Oh,
was
yeah.
built. I
I
saw it
think I
on
seen that
Ancient
on
Aliens
TikTok or
once, and it was
something.
also on Graham Hancock's show
Is-
on Netflix.
there's another one. Yeah, Graham Hancock covered
Makes
a
you
couple.
wonder if some high elites in society way back when, or who knows when, knew something was coming, so they're like, "Oh man, we gotta retreat underground."
Yeah,
like,
they would
there
never
was-
tell us.
This was so elaborate too. Like there's even like ducts to bring fresh air in so you don't run out of air down there. And it's like, how'd they even have the technology back then to build
could have
such an
been-
There
elaborate
was
city?
another
If it was
temple
like-
in the Amazon that was discovered like that, but that's another theory about Göbekli Tepe as well. That
Mhm.
was actually like a bunker, but more of like a spiritual bunker. Like it
Mhm.
was for religious purposes. So
If it was like 2,000 years ago, or like 1,000 years ago, wasn't there a really bad ice period?
I don't know,
So
and I'm
maybe
not
they
exactly.
were doing it because people were dying, freezing to death.
It's
and-
possible, but I also don't know exactly how old it is because if I'm not mistaken, Graham Hancock said the government of Turkey won't let them carbon date the area.
Yeah, carbon dating don't
It-
work anyway.
it's same thing with the Egyptian pyramids.
I'm not
They
exactly
won't-
sure how carbon dating works, so I'm not
Well,
sure
you
how they
can't
gather
you
it.
can't carbon date stone, so it's near impossible to do a lot of stuff. Carbon dating usually has to do with like soil records.
Hmm.
So they'll dig like a cylindrical tube into the ground,
Hmm.
and then they'll take that sample, pull the sample out, and as the cylinder comes up, you'll see the different layers of soil, and by that you can determine how long. It's kind of like looking at the rings of a tree. When
Okay.
you cut a tree down, you could see the different levels of the rings. You could say, okay, this tree is 100 years old because it has a different 100 rings. This was a really bad year because the ring's only this thick.
Mhm.
This must have been a really good year because the ring is this thick. And then, oh, this looks like a year where there could have been a bad fire because there's char marks, things
Mhm.
like that. That's how carbon dating works. From my experience, from what I understand about it.
But yeah, I want to know what these elites know and why they're getting all their bunkers prepared.
We're on the
Do they know of some natural cataclysm coming, or do
the
they
United
know?
States is on the verge of collapse.
Yeah, do they
Or
know
it
World
could
War
be
III's
something
on
as
its
simple
way?
as they have the money, they need to use it for something, and if something happens, they have a place to go.
Yeah, that could be. That could be.
That's a solid point, but I think they know something's coming.
Maybe.
Maybe when AI takes over, it's going to hack the system and just nuke everything. But that seems like it would kind of also destroy the AI, so I don't know if I'd see that happening.
It could be a contingency for that where it's like we're starting to play around with such advanced technology where we're kind of like playing God.
Hmm.
So people have been saying for like 15, 20 years the dangers of AI. Like if we continue down this path, something very bad could happen. So the way we see it, I mean, nobody's going to stop, right?
Mhm.
At this point, if America decides, okay, we're not going to do this, China's going to continue doing it. They're going to keep making
Well, people in
advancements
the
with
U.S. would
AI.
do it anyway. They'd just
Yeah.
be on the DL.
So if you know something is coming or you foresee the possibilities, then why not have a contingency? You know,
Mhm.
like, okay, we're going to mess around with AI. And if something really terrible happens, like Terminator, we're going to have a place to go.
Did you happen to read the response an AI gave when somebody asked the AI how AI would take over the world? Started with a Roomba. Basically, the AI said it would hack the Roomba to be able to connect to Wi-Fi, and then from there just spread out everywhere.
Well, why wouldn't they just take control of like an Alexa console then? Because that thing has unfettered access to the
How many-
internet. And
how many
Alexa's,
people have-
Alexas can't move. Maybe the AI wants to move around a little bit.
That yeah.
a Roomba. Have you seen the notifications that new Roombas send? They
No.
they like go over a 1-inch ledge and it sends you a notification saying it fell off a cliff. So they're not very.
How many people
mobile.
have Alexa compared to Roombas though? Because
It's probably,
even I have a Roomba,
it's
and I don't
probably-
have anything.
Yeah, but it's probably comparable. My guess is if you have a Roomba, there's a high chance that you have an Alexa as well.
Yeah, I don't have either.
Could
I'll
be.
I'll limit it to having one device and one device only that can listen into what I'm saying. That's why I won't get a Alexa or the Google Home thing or any
But
of
at the
those.
same, why would it choose a Roomba when literally every
It has to choose
like
something.
70% of the population on the planet has a cell phone?
I don't
Would
know.
just
I just
hack
thought
a
it was.
cell phone.
I just thought it was cool. It started with a Roomba. I was like,
Well,
creative.
cell phones go-
creative.
Like you take it with you everywhere. Roombas
Yeah.
never leave.
Yeah. So wouldn't artificial intelligence want to have like a pinpoint accurate account of every single person in motion at any given time?
If they can do that.
The thing is, once AI could
be
even
able to.
get into, if it went rogue, if it got into any Wi-Fi signal, I feel like it would literally, like that, be able to spread to everything.
Yeah, it'd be
For sure.
Yeah.
in minutes.
It wouldn't take
everywhere.
long before the stock market tanks. You can't access your bank accounts.
Yeah. It would take over any kind of infrastructure.
anything.
Yeah. It could easily just send us back 1,000 years.
That's
how
why
long?
I turn all of my money into 5 gum.
Five
Should.
gum would be a great currency in the future. That shit's intense.
It is intense.
So how many years, how long do you think it's going to be till we actually see robot cops?
New York City already
Well,
has
I mean,
them.
they already have.
They got the little robot dogs, right?
New York City bought 2 robot dogs. One of them has already been destroyed, from what I understand.
Not shocking.
Yeah. that makes
But
sense.
they also have a subway cop.
issue out.
That thing hasn't been
It
destroyed
gives
yet?
out fines, basically.
Yeah.
It just makes people that jump like turnstiles and stuff, and it like
So
enforces
honestly,
proper
10 years.
code.
I'm not
Even
condoning.
less. I think less.
I'm not condoning destruction of government property. However, would be pretty interesting if every time a robot cop came about, people just destroyed it. It'd make them want to maybe stop deploying them.
Or
Yeah.
they would arm
because
them
they're so
with
expensive.
spinning chainsaws.
That would actually be pretty cool. I'm not gonna lie. I'd rather see a robot with spinning chainsaw than a gun.
I think
Just
it would
just for
get.
just for the visual aspect of it.
I think it's funny that the states that have like the strictest gun control laws are the ones where they're starting to implement this like smart AI technology. We never hear a story about Texas or Florida using traffic cameras, right?
Hmm.
But California and New York City have them, right? Even us here in Elmira,
They do.
we're
no
starting
good.
to get
Mhm.
traffic cameras and stuff like
They
that.
do no good. Did you
Right.
hear about the drive-by shooting on the moped?
Yeah,
And yet they still
Still
haven't
don't have 'em.
still haven't called the dude.
because
So
that's
what?
not
so-
really the point of
So
it.
what good are those cameras?
To take a still standing photo of you in your car speeding 3 miles per hour over the speed limit and taking a photo of your license plate.
But they can't track our speed yet. That's what
Oh,
Nick
they
was
can.
saying. So then why couldn't
can.
it take a still photo of the dude on the moped?
I bet it
Because
did.
they go off anytime anything passes them.
I bet it did take a photo, but the problem is it's very hard to get like the facial structure of a person who's wearing a hood as opposed to seeing a license plate that has very clear and definitive like digits and letters.
Man, somebody needs to invent. You know how they got like those clear license plate covers? Somebody needs to invent one that makes it so cameras can't see the license plate. That'd be
They
cool.
already do. They make
Ah.
those. There have been some that have been designed to where it stops like flash photography.
Mhm.
So it's like I don't remember the technology, but one of the most interesting points is who is that woman? She got really famous very quickly because she had like a scandalous sex tape. Paris Hilton.
Oh,
she
okay.
has like a clothing design line, right? She created clothing specifically designed to stop paparazzi photography.
I seen that.
It
The
has
entire
a big
photo
flare.
is just
Yes,
bright.
it
You
ruins
can
the photo
barely
because
see
as
'em.
soon as a flash goes off, it's like reflective.
It's actually a
safety
pretty
gear.
good idea.
They started using that same technology for shield casings on license plates, where if
Okay.
something takes a photo, it just shows up blank or as a reflective surface.
Speaking of photography, I just saw this video the other day. I don't know if you guys have seen it or not. So our phones use like some kind of like laser technology to focus on the subject that you're tapping on when you like tap on it on the screen. Someone had a spider trapped in a cup and they would tap the table, the spider wouldn't move. When they would tap their phone where the spider was on the phone, the spider would move, almost as if the spider could sense or feel the
Beam. Or
the
something.
beam or whatever,
like the heat coming
the
off
heat, laser, whatever it is, detecting the thing you're trying to focus on. Because I know like iPhones, they'll send like some kind of like laser out, and then however long it takes to reflect off that and come back, it knows like the distance away, so it knows how much it needs to focus. So I think I almost want to try that sometime. Try to trap a spider and do that, see if it works, or if they were
Seems
just fucking
kind of
around.
cool, but I mean, an interesting experiment.
I have trouble believing even videos like that I see online now, because it's so easy to fake or manipulate any videos.
A lot of people, I don't think, ever really realize like how inept our vision is as human beings.
Hmm.
Like, of course, everything that we see and touch and feel, we believe is our physical reality uh, until like infrared was discovered. So,
There's
and
probably
then
all kinds of shit around us right now we can't even
that
see.
we
Like
don't.
our
Yeah,
visible light spectrum is like a sliver
Compared
RBG.
to
of
like a mantis shrimp.
It's
it
RBG. It's
compared
red,
to
blue, and green.
yeah,
Those are
compared to
cool.
Yeah.
all the light that's out there in the universe. Like we can only see a sliver of it.
Yeah, we see three spectrums where the mantis
It
shrimp
has
is
like
like 27.
11. Yeah, it's
Man,
I think it was
It's a
27.
lot.
But it's a lot
yeah.
more than us.
Or 16. I want to say
Something.
16, 18.
Yeah.
Somewhere like
But even birds, cats, dogs, they see things that we'll never see until eventually we get goggles. Of course, we can see like even X-ray, like infrared vision or X-rays. Doctors that look at X-ray photos of like your bones and stuff. To think that that's something that we can take a photograph of, and it, that might be some creatures walking around all the time, where a spider might literally just not even see us; they just see our skeletal structure or something. It's kind of wild to think that we really do not see the universe in its entirety. We're not even close.
I do not condone drug use, but there are some things out there that can make you see colors you've never seen before.
It'd be interesting.
see sounds and hear colors.
Yeah,
It-
synesthesia is weird. Very weird.
I
When
wanted
you
to experience that.
when you experience it for the
scary.
first time, it's weird. There was a time I heard a sound and somehow that sound tasted green.
tasted green. What does green taste like?
The sound tasted like the color green, and that's about the best way I can describe it.
I'll have to go on one of these journeys.
I've
sometime.
also watched sound waves. I was up in the bathroom one time on a certain fungus, and we had music playing downstairs, and I looked down at the vent, and I watched the sound waves from the music come up the vent into the bathroom and start bouncing off the walls. And like I felt like I could almost like hear the sound in the bathroom like bouncing off the walls too.
That's kind of cool.
Yeah, there's some interesting experiences that can be had. But again, I don't condone anything illegal.
Yeah. I think what is it? Just recently, in like the last 10 years, we started playing with cymatics really heavily. We've seen the videos
Cymatic
where-
frequencies are really cool.
Yeah, where they'll have like the metal sheet,
The
and they'll
Chladni
just-
plate.
Yeah, they'll put like the sand on it and then
Mhm.
just run like a string bow across it, or have music
it's
plugged in.
Have you
That stuff
seen
is so
Beautiful.
cool.
Have you seen the one where there's like a speaker above and a speaker below, and the guy takes a bubble and he puts a bubble on it, connects two bubbles to make like one
think I
thing,
have.
and then he has just like one of those ring lights that he shines into it, and with the right frequency, it actually makes 4-dimensional shapes. One made a Klein bottle, another made the Taurus energy field.
That's
So like
interesting.
on the Chladni plate, you can really only see the shapes in 2 dimensions. Where with the bubble and the ring light going through it with the frequencies, you can actually see like they're like 4-dimensional shapes showing up in our 3D perception. So
That's
like
interesting.
shapes we normally can't see. I'll have to if I can find the video, I'll send it to the group.
I have seen a couple interesting experiments with bubbles. I've seen one where, so we would assume like if you put a bubble inside of a bubble inside of a bubble inside of a bubble, it would just create like circular or spheres connecting everything. But for some reason, when you do this with bubbles, it will actually create a 4-dimensional square inside, because something about the air pressure and everything. Where
Would
if
that
you have-
4-dimensional square be similar to a what's it called? Tesseract?
Probably something like that. But where you keep adding more and more bubbles, you would think because a bubble is a circle, a sphere, it would create spheres. Whereas if you can do it in a way to where you have bubbles just connecting to each other, it actually forces into different shapes. So if you can make one into a square where you have a square inside of another square, and so on and so forth. But if you keep adding on to it, then you get a dodecahedron inside of a different. It's really, really interesting with that stuff.
I'm gonna
Have
to
you
see if I can
seen
find
the
that video.
It's like magnetic black goo. Have you ever seen those?
I know what you're talking
Where
about.
they'll
where
put
they
it
take,
on a
They
speaker.
take the magnet and it spikes up. And
Yeah.
Then, yeah.
But they've also been able to play around with that stuff with sound as well, and it will react to the sound
Okay.
frequencies
Yeah,
and actually
ferrofluid.
ferrofluid.
That's what it's
That
called.
stuff
Yep.
is so.
Yeah, I
cool.
watch. I think it's Nile Red play around with
Yeah.
it a lot.
It's yeah, it's so
I'm
interesting.
gonna go turn the heat off. It's getting warm.
Yeah, it. I
mean,
it,
even-
it bugs me that I don't believe as a human being I will ever see the true form of what a black hole is.
Hmm.
As we perceive it right now and what we see through our telescopic vision that we can observe a black hole, it's literally just that. It's empty black matter space.
Mhm.
That's obviously not what it truly is
Yeah,
because
what's
we're
in
only
there?
perceiving what we can. If we were able to see what a black hole truly is,
How do we fall into one like in the movie Interstellar, where he falls into the black hole?
the theory behind it is once you pass the threshold, I can't remember what it's, the event horizon.
Hmm.
Is there's a couple different theories where you either get spaghettified
Hmm.
is the term, but I think the force in which you would be pulled in, it would just be instant. There wouldn't be a point where you're just floating in space and then your toe hits the event horizon and then it just starts. I think your whole body would just be pulled in from a singular point. I don't think
I think it'd be fine.
spaghettification. Maybe. There's the one really fun theory. One of my favorites is that our universe is inside of a black hole.
So maybe the black holes would take us to the outside. You wouldn't be falling in, you'd be falling out.
Oh, the theory goes that each black hole is its own miniature universe. So like the Big Bang as we know it was actually the inception of a black hole, and the reason why we perceive space around us as ever expanding from this one singular point is because the gravitational pull of the black hole that we're in just keeps sucking in more matter, so it's spitting it out on the other side. So like we're inside the black hole, where on the outside of our black hole it's still eating all this matter, creating our universe. So the theory would be we're inside of a black hole, and because the center of our galaxy has a black hole, it is actually eating material and then spitting it out into a new universe.
Interesting.
It's one
So,
of my favorite theories of how our universe is created, and then
so black
Well, it
holes.
still wouldn't
continues.
explain anything.
So black
So
holes
where's everything
both.
coming from?
from another universe.
And then where'd that one come from?
From another
Then
universe.
that would,
Where'd the
It
original
definitely-
come from?
yeah, it can't be
definitely.
indefinitely.
But where did
Because-
the original universe
Yeah.
come from?
Well, it just could have always existed because you can't create something from nothing, right? So,
Yeah.
like the theory of the black hole is everything ever imaginable in our entire existence was in this one point at a single time. Well, that would essentially be creating something from nothing. Infinite somethings from absolutely nothing, which is impossible.
So if it's always been here, how did it get here?
It's just been. It's always been.
Just something that is.
It depends on who you ask. If you ask religious people, then it was created. But then who created that? You know, who created the creator? How did he come to be, or how did it come to be?
Well,
I just think it's
if
always
as
been
above,
true.
so below, then there must have been a God mom and a God dad that had God son, and then
That's why it's called the Big Bang.
oh yeah, they were definitely big
The
banging.
inception.
Maybe that's why black holes both spit and swallow. I
I
knew a couple girls in the past that did that.
Well, you know, that's always been an interesting theory about black holes is that nothing can ever escape, but now there's evidence that there is certain things that can actually escape black holes. I believe, if I remember correctly, we don't have like video evidence, but we've seen an anomaly where black holes do actually shoot out plasma from swallowing something too big, kind of like a pulsar. Is a pulsar correct? Maybe a neutron? I think I'm getting them mixed up, but there is a specific star type. It's collapsing on itself, but it doesn't have enough power to collapse into a black hole. But the rate in which it is spinning is so quickly, it actually shoots jets of plasma out into space. It's either
Pulsar sounds right.
pulsar or neutron. They're fairly similar. It's just, but
The
yeah,
amount of mass. Yeah.
something like that has, I believe, been observed inside of a black hole where it does actually spit out a stream of energy.
So a pulsar is a highly magnetized rotating neutron star that emits beams of electromagnetic radiation out of its magnetic poles.
Yeah.
The radiation can be observed only when a beam of emission is pointing towards Earth.
Towards Earth.
Similar to the way a lighthouse can be seen only when the light is pointed in the direction of an observer, and is responsible for the pulsed appearance of emission.
It's been fantasized in different games and things like that. The concept of them are very, very interesting.
And then neutron stars are very dense and have a short, regular rotational period. This produces a very precise interval between pulses that ranges from milliseconds to seconds for an individual pulsar.
Yeah, how much does a neutron star weigh? It's like a teaspoon is a ton, something like that.
I have no idea.
Pretty sure that's what it was. 1 teaspoon is
It's
2,000
just-
pounds.
It's a star that collapsed on itself, but it wasn't strong enough to become a black hole.
Yeah.
So
Man, as I Google
there's also the theory of white holes, but I think that's been almost disproven now.
pulsars, I'm gonna have to open this up in a new tab.
Space is interesting.
It said, well, this
White
says
hole sounds
This says
nice.
pulsar vaporizers, most popular vapes, bongs, and dab rigs. So yeah, that's I'm opening
that's your
that.
algorithm working for you right there.
Even though I've only smoked twice in the last 2 months, or
Yeah.
3 months actually.
Space and things like that are very interesting. If human beings ever become
What?
an interstellar species, I'm sad that I'll miss out on that, but I don't know. There's been theories about the way that humans will ever enter space. I think it'd be very ineffective for humans to go into space as organic beings. It doesn't
There's-
make sense.
There's also a company called Pulsar that makes thermal monoculars and binoculars. Yeah, but they're like $1,500 to $6,000.
Their thermal vision? That's
Yeah.
pretty dope. So you basically get to act like Predator for a day.
Yeah, so like if you were out in the woods at night and couldn't see, or early in the morning trying to deer hunt, you could just
Mm-hmm.
Thermal
look for
vision.
the heat.
That's pretty dope.
That's a cheap
Yeah,
one.
they are not cheap though.
Just another thing we have no idea. Isn't that theorized how snakes see thermal vision?
Oh, just about yeah.
yeah,
yeah,
by
they see
body
heat.
heat and everything
Yeah.
like that.
I can Google it.
But it's not even like, it's not that they see that, but it's because of their tongue flicker and something about their nostrils.
Yeah, they're
that
yeah.
helps them see thermal. It's crazy. It's crazy to think that we're the ones that evolved this way. Could have been so many other things. Even our bodies in general are very strange. Like I was watching some videos about human anatomy and our eardrums. Our bodies are so weird, man. So they're so inefficiently designed.
Well, some things are really, really efficient, I guess, and then some things are so delicate
Yeah,
that
like our eardrums
like
and stuff.
yeah, a little.
But the fact that our body
little bit of force
produces,
Like our
makes it-
our
yeah.
testicles.
yeah,
Why if there was an intelligent creator, why would you put one of the most delicate parts of our body on the outside of our body and not up in to
But
protect
at the
us?
same time, how often do you like get a serious testicle injury? Not often.
I mean, it's probably
happens in sports a lot.
I feel like it's at least once or twice a month where I'm getting into my car real fast and I kind of squish my testicles sitting down.
That's never
I
happened.
You've
think
never
that
done
means
that?
Never
You're
happened.
getting
Man.
old and your balls are getting saggy.
Or
Nah,
maybe
I
they're
think
just too
it's-
big. You
No,
might
I
need
I
to get
think
a
it's just the way I sit-
testicular reduction.
I think it's just the way I sit down in the car.
It's just the way our bodies are designed. But I think it's a good thing because it gives women a very, very fair defensive maneuver against
It
us.
does. You fucking squeeze those things or give them a
That's
swift
true.
kick
If
and
they're inside our body, there's no way
game
a woman
over.
would ever be able to. Yeah.
But since they're on the outside, one swift kick and it's a factory reset. So
you don't even need a swift kick. You can just give them a flick if you're in the right area. I learned
Yeah.
the hard way when I was like 12 years old.
I think
I was-
flicks hurt more.
I
than
was in the shower and there was a little gnat flying around and it landed on my testicle, and me not thinking, I mean, what do you do when something lands on your arm? Yeah, me not thinking, I went to flick it off, and it dropped me down to my knees, and that sound you made, I felt like I was gonna throw up. I was like,
See, when you
Oh.
said that, I think we talked about this last week when you watch videos of people giving themselves paper cuts
Yeah,
or
you
something,
feel
you
it,
can feel
you
it.
s- them
I just
yourself,
felt that
yeah.
in my throat, and my whole stomach just kind of jumped into my throat when you did that noise. On
One
your
of the
arm.
types of videos that gives me that feeling the most is when I watch a skateboarder slam down on the ground real hard. Just I feel like I can feel it in my hands, that feeling of smacking concrete.
Yeah.
Or I think one of the worst ones for me is when people jump from really high and they land flat-footed and you can hear it. Kadoosh.
Oh,
I just feel like my knees buckle in, just like oh, and you could just feel the electricity through your legs. You're just like,
You ever see the video of the dude jumping out like a third or fourth story window? Like the cops
to
were at
get
his
away
door
from
or
the
something.
cops. Yep.
And he lands
the dude was
flat-footed?
Like, yeah, and he was like, oh, and he lands and he just like falls to the ground and then immediately gets up and starts running. And the dude recording is like, yo, why would he do that?
Had to be a
yeah,
crackhead.
how would you do that?
Had to be a crackhead because
PCP?
they're like superheroes. That's possibly another one because I don't know if any of you guys have ever done a dissociative. PCP is a dissociative, and you don't exactly feel much on a dissociative. I found that out at
Yeah, it
Grassroots.
turns off all your pain receptors, don't it?
I found that out at Grassroots one year. I was on ketamine and I was in the drum circle, and I was just fucking pounding away on my djembe. And the next morning, I woke up, obviously when the ketamine was all worn
and then
off.
Your hands were all bruised.
My hand, not bruised, but they felt like they were swollen. Like
Mm.
like when I bent them, it felt like they were like this fat, and I'm like, oh my god, I must have just been fucking
Yeah.
going like a wild animal on that djembe.
I mean, I've seen some videos, of course. I've seen a lot of like police videos of encounters with PCP, and some of that shit is scary. Like,
Yeah.
I've watched a cop unload an entire magazine into somebody, and they just continue walking at him. It's like,
Or you taser
bro,
them, and
you
they're
just
just
took
like,
9. Yeah, it's like you just took 9 to the chest, and you're still alive. How? How are you still? How does your body turn off the fact that you're dead?
In a situation like
insane.
that, police should carry katanas to decapitate the individual.
But would that even work? Because like
I don't know. They might just zombie it and just keep walking
Yeah.
without a head.
That'd
I-
be interesting.
I don't understand
Terrifying.
though how a drug can stop death. Like that makes no sense to me.
Yeah, I don't know if that's
Anybody who is
possible.
of sober mind, if you take 9 to the chest, you're done. You're either dead or you're on the ground. But this drug can stop your brain from saying yes, you're dead.
And that's why they used to give stuff like
That's-
that to people in the military back in
Yeah.
the 40s.
Yeah, that's true. I mean, the Germans had their Uba chocolate, which was methamphetamine infused chocolates.
I mean,
That's
even the
crazy.
Japanese were giving their kamikaze pilots methamphetamine.
Yeah.
I feel like you'd have to
That
be
was
all.
huge.
I feel like you'd have to be all jacked up on meth to think it's a good idea to suicide bomb your plane into something.
That's
for your
crazy. The
country.
East had meth and the West had morphine. That's insane.
But speaking of decapitating people and
Which we would
them
never
s-
do. We would
yeah,
never
still
condone any kind of
walking.
violence.
I was watching Baki, and they were talking about a story of this Japanese swordsman or something. Their team got caught, and he was like, "If you chop my head off and I run, and you got to spare all the soldiers that my body runs past."
I think I remember.
Yeah,
Yeah,
you seen that?
Yeah,
That show's so cool.
It
But
is,
yeah, apparently, I wonder if the story is real because a lot of the stuff is based on real world stuff,
Mhm.
and I guess the swordsman picked up his head and ran past his entire team, and they spared everybody. I wonder if that's a real story.
It would take some real mental fortitude to tell yourself that I'm going to do.
Yeah,
this
you have
once
it
I'm gone.
pre-programmed in your body, like this is what I'm gonna do when this happens, and then your body carries it
You
out.
better do it, body.
There have been cases of things like that though, where somebody does get decapitated or something, and their body continues to
Yeah,
do what
yep.
they were doing for up to like a minute afterwards. I think there's been stories where like soldiers in the line of duty who are on a machine gun catch one to the head, but they stand there continuing to do it until finally they collapse. Human beings are very strange. Our bodies and our minds, like once you flip the switch, like we just and we're spaghetti on the floor, but if you can stop.
spaghetti.
But once
Oh.
you stop that
Spaghetti
receptor,
does sound pretty good.
like we've figured out a way to turn that off somehow to where we can just a chemical can force our brain to not recognize that we're gone.
All
That's
you got to
kinda
do
wild.
is just don't be a bitch and just don't die.
That's true.
Man up, and just don't die.
We could do that. I mean, we have the drugs. we literally
just-
can do it.
Get your brain moved somewhere else. So if you do lose your head, you're still good.
Or have a spare brain on standby you can stick in there if you lose yours. You know,
Yeah.
I'm sure Walmart has them on sale.
I wonder if our consciousness is connected to our brain.
That's $1 million question.
I don't know where else it would be.
Well, there's the one theory that
Because
consciousness.
you can get other things replaced, like your heart replaced.
Yeah.
You can't get your brain replaced.
But he's talking about the consciousness,
Yeah, like
where there's some
yeah,
theories
you,
that
Jesse,
Yeah.
your consciousness.
Yeah, every other body part can be replaced, and you're still you, but except your brain.
right. But does your consciousness come from the electrical signals in your brain, or is it something outside of the brain,
like an
such
aura
as
that's just
well, such as like the TV itself doesn't have the TV signal. The TV signal comes into it to show you the programs, or like the radio itself, what you're hearing in the radio comes from the signal outside into the radio. And the one idea of consciousness is theorized that that's how consciousness is. It's something outside of the physical brain,
like somebody playing a video game.
yeah, like a
Where
signal
our
or something
brain is
attached
just
to
like,
it.
It's just like a computer. Our brain is the mechanism that controls our body, that makes everything function. So once that's destroyed, everything's destroyed. But I mean, there's been videos and testimonies of brain surgeries of people that have been able to do weird things, you know, severe head trauma. I've
You
seen,
learn a new language.
yeah, you can actually pick up a different language from severe head trauma.
Could have
but
swore
there's
I
been-
watched a video about a guy that became like a math genius after some
Yeah, that
brain
too.
Yeah.
injury.
or just different things. You start remembering things from a different life. But people have done open brain surgery where they'll actually prove where like different parts of the brain can connect. And one of the theories, people say that your brain actually doesn't feel any pain, so that's why they're able to do like open brain surgeries where people have watched, but they've been able to like poke around and make people's arms move and do different things.
Yeah.
It's kind of crazy.
That's
I
where
don't-
I'd be that immature doctor trying to poke around and make someone be like
Yeah.
giving the finger. They'd be like, "All right, you're losing your license to be a doctor. You can't be trusted."
You're the Degeneration X.
Suck it.
It is. The brain is very.
Oh, that
very
would
strange.
actually be a cool game. Brain Operation Simulator.
I think you're onto something there.
Some reason that just made me.
Do you know
think
how to
of
write
those,
out? Do you know how to write algorithms for
No.
games? Oh man, you
Have
need
you
to link up
seen
with
the,
somebody that does and get that created.
the VR surgery games?
Mm-hmm.
They're hysterical
'em.
to watch.
I have not seen those
Oh,
actually.
you would enjoy.
You're
would
holding
enjoy.
a scalpel and you can just start slicing them up and they'll start
Yeah.
bleeding and then
They got a
Like,
dentist
oh, they're
one
dead
and a
and
surgery
try
one.
again.
Yeah, well, you'll get a patient and be like, "Oh, they have a broken bone," and you have to like cut open their arm and reset the bone. Or
Okay.
there's a couple of really funny dudes that will like take a fork and right into somebody's eye and be like, "Whoops, I didn't mean to do that." They are funny.
Yeah, I
VR
watched
games
a
are
ton of them streamers.
hysterical. VR games are hysterical. But the human brain. I don't know. Do you think we'll ever know much about it?
No.
Yeah,
I don't
think it's
think-
too complicated.
I
I'd
don't
like-
think humans have the capacity to learn about things that are that advanced. Like our brain is just it's too much.
Hmm.
I don't think we're ever going to learn about it.
With the assistance of AI, though, I mean, we've programmed AI to be able to scan the brain and make a 3D image to
Yeah.
watch like our neurons fire.
But doesn't the AI have to get its understanding of the brain from already written material on our understanding?
Because otherwise it would just be making stuff up and we wouldn't know if it's
Right.
correct or not.
Unless somehow AI was able to actually get inside of like robots or machines, and then these machines
So, like
started,
nano machines and they went in our brain.
yeah, or these machines started operating on our brain to find shit out.
But we've been able to use AI because it can certainly see things that we can't. So we can't see in infrared or thermal imaging and stuff like that, but AI can. So we have used AI to use infrared imaging of an MRI scan of a human brain and have layered it on top of itself to where it has been able to produce an image. AI has been able to produce an image of the human brain firing neurons where we've been able to see where the pathways are. Something we would never be able to do.
Yeah.
But with the knowledge that we've collected of things we already know, we've been able to put a system in place where AI can then feed it to us. But the way AI is going right now, it's going to be able to do more than we ever could.
I just
So,
want to
theoretically
know why people have to sleep, and then if they can just shut that off.
Have you ever
Nice.
read into certain sleep deprivation experiments?
Mm-hmm.
It,
Like people
It's
trying to
scary.
go for the world record of staying awake, and
Hallucinating.
they start
and-
hallucinating by like day 4.
Yeah.
I did a sleep deprivation experiment on myself back in, I think it was early 2015.
I've
There
only been able
was-
to do 3 days.
There was some chemicals involved for me to do this experience, and I was on my third day. It's possible the hallucinations I was having were because I'd been up for about 62 hours. But it's also possible that, I ended the experience leaning, little purple drink in my cup. I ended the experience with that, so it's possible that played into the hallucinations of I just call them the silver people. I was out on my front porch smoking a cigarette before I finally just couldn't keep my eyes open anymore, and there was these silver people just walking in and out of existence across the street, which actually isn't the only time I've ever seen people popping in and out of existence. There was another time at Grassroots where there was also some chemicals involved.
It seems to be a pattern, Adam. There seems to be a pattern.
I've definitely had some fun with some chemicals.
I have only been able to do 3 days with energy drinks.
Like coffee, yeah.
Yeah, with severe energy drinks and things like that. For some reason, one time I've decided to brew a pot of coffee using Monster Energy and then crushing up caffeine pills. It's
Ah.
That sounds
was-
like a heart attack waiting to happen.
It basically was. I mean, I probably did die, and this is all my imagination.
I think I did
But-
like 54 hours, somewhere around
Yeah.
there. That was awful.
I just about hit 76 hours, and it's undoable. I don't know. Our brain just needs time to be like, yo, I can't do this anymore. But that's just like everything that takes some kind of energy to run. You can't indefinitely run a car engine. It
Yeah,
needs
but-
to be refilled.
Or no, you could just keep fuel going into
Yes, but
it.
eventually
The same thing with us. Our fuel comes from the food we eat. Why not just
Jesus.
continuously eat and then we're good?
because we're organic. So
Yeah.
it needs other energy supplies. It
Yeah, but
needs
why?
to recharge. Oh, good question. Don't
Yeah,
know.
that's what I'm saying. Why do we need this stuff? What does it actually do?
So I just Googled the world record for staying awake
Isn't it 7 days?
longer.
No, it's
Al-
21 days.
11 days
11
and
days.
24 minutes. So a
Oof.
total of 264 hours and 25 minutes.
Week and a half.
That
We'll have to read up on that and
Almost
see what
2
they
weeks. That's
say
Yeah,
about
by the
crazy.
end, what he was
what
doing.
you were experiencing. Because I would imagine your whole touch of reality.
Yeah, your
is
whole
probably
perception of
gone.
reality is topsy turvy.
Yeah.
Like you're just everything you see is colors.
Well, maybe
and-
maybe that's why we need to sleep, is because our brain can only process so much. So when we stay awake for that long, it continues to absorb all this information and it can't handle it no more. So maybe sleeping is our brain's way of being able to
sorting. Yeah,
sort that information
get
out
rid of all
and
the
then store
garbage
it.
and
Otherwise, it's kind of like opening too many windows on your computer. Like if you have 1,000 windows of YouTube opened up, it's gonna slow the computer down where it's
yeah,
probably gonna
could
fail
be the
out.
same thing as having to run defraggler and stuff
Yeah,
like that.
Yeah. Who knows?
What else has happened recently?
So there was a debate online
Oh yeah,
between the left and the right of January 6th. I'm watching that right now. It's
I do want to watch the whole thing.
gonna
I
be
watched like
interesting.
some of the middle.
Yeah, because I'm not a huge fan of Alex Jones, but I personally don't think January 6th was just some incredible insurrection. But I also like Destiny because I think he holds some valid points when it comes to a lot of his theories or his views on stuff. I don't
Yeah.
agree with him with most stuff, but
No.
he's very clearly an intelligent
If
person.
if there is somebody on the left leaning side of politics that I want to hear debate, I definitely put Destiny in that category for sure.
but
for sure.
even right now, he's kind of getting kicked out of the left.
Yeah, because compared to most people, he can actually articulate his
Yes.
points, and
But he also has some very based views on a lot of things.
Yeah.
So
That's why
he's
I-
grounded in reality. He doesn't just strictly adhere to leftist talking.
Yeah.
That's why I hate the whole left right paradigm.
Yeah.
Like, I feel like a lot more people than we think actually fall more towards the center.
Yeah, center right.
And then the people making the most amount of nonsensical noise are the people on the extremes of both ends. So
Yeah.
then all the people that are one side or the other but still closer to the center think everybody on the opposite side is like that crazy person that's making the most noise.
Well, there's no controversy if a majority is in the middle,
Hmm.
and controversy is what is needed. You know, how else are we not going to get anything done? You know, if everybody agrees on something, then we would be able to pile through all of our problems. But if there's these fringe ends of the spectrum that are controlling the narrative, then we'll never accomplish anything. So
I feel like the
What a
majority of people agreeing on something isn't
I need a water.
isn't that like how, the republic is supposed to pass laws and make things legal? Oh, I got some water. Make things legal or illegal.
yeah, but then they would have to do their job, you know, and then we would have to work on more pressing matters, you know, like the Epstein flight logs and what's going on in the world right now. Why are we involved in so many things that we shouldn't be? And why do we have like 126 military bases around the world like we're some kind of evil empire? And, you know, all these different things. Yeah.
I'm so
I mean,
unprepared today.
I mean, I've had an idea why
love
we got all
America,
those
but-
bases all over the world.
Yeah. I love America and what it's supposed to stand for, but it's very clear that in the last like 150 years, something very drastic has happened where we have become an evil empire.
Or has America been being pimped out and used as to help try to establish something for the one world government that's coming?
I mean, America is one of the major players for that. You know?
So it's like
you can't do anything in the world without America.
So it's the idea that God is omnipotent, omniscience, and what's the other one? Omnipresent, right? So if this one world government wanted to act as the God of the planet or like the ruler trying to portray God, they would want to be all knowing, which they already know everything about us because we put it all out there on the internet, on our cell phones. They want to be all seeing, which damn near any big city now is just covered in security cameras. And they'd
they
want to
can access
be
our cell phone cameras whenever they want.
Yep. And then they'd want to be all present. And if there's a military base near anywhere where
Yeah,
there'd
every couple
be
of miles.
where there anywhere
seems
there'd
like.
be an uprising, then they're already right there, present, ready to go to stop and extinguish that uprising. And I think America was used for just that, to establish those military strongholds.
Yeah,
Do we have a military base like in every country in the world?
just about.
Maybe not every country, but I feel like the more major countries
Well, at
where
least
It's
Where
over
it
100,
matters.
right?
That
We
have
have like
a
a
s-
119 or something.
I think it might
military
even be
bases.
more than that. Let me Google it.
Like
It's
obviously
definitely over
countries
100.
that don't have the
Yeah.
size to.
We've got one in South Korea, Japan, most of Africa, you know, the Middle East.
Yeah.
We've got bases in places we shouldn't.
Do we have any in Russia? Probably
No, probably
yeah,
not.
Maybe.
And we might have one like off the coast somewhere on a small island, but I think the whole thing with NATO
Well, I guess
and things
Alaska
like that,
would
we're not
be
supposed to.
close enough.
Yeah.
Because they're what 3 miles apart. For I think
No
the
idea.
one islands they're like 3 miles apart, but their time zones are 16
idea.
hours apart or something like that. It's funny.
No idea. Yeah. So that was going on. There's the debate between the left and right about January 6th. Of course, Epstein's flight logs. The Supreme Court is probably going to hear Donald Trump's case about him being taken off the ballots.
Yep, that's a big one. And good thing it's
So-
this early, and
Yes.
they didn't wait.
Well, they have to.
Yeah.
So the United
Do they
States controls
They kind of do.
The United States controls about 750 bases in 80 countries.
That's probably so. Yeah, almost
So
every
where
country.
did I hear like 120 from?
I was gonna-
700.
I was gonna guess
750 in 80 different countries.
We're definitely
That's 3 times.
we have
as
a
much as I
monopoly
figured.
on violence.
Yeah,
That is
and
stupid.
We also
Why?
spend more on our military than the next 10
countries
top
combined.
countries combined.
Yeah.
But we also does that take into fact that we use our military budget to fund like 2 other countries' military?
Oh, I don't. Yeah, I wonder if that ties in.
Is it is it
'Cause-
Sweden or Finland
what?
that
do-
we front the bill of either Sweden's or Finland's entire military budget?
Oh, I don't. I can't be very
Yeah.
much anyway. They don't do anything.
I'm pretty sure it's one of the
Like
more
$100.
but it's one of the more socialist countries where they have a lot of socialist programs. This is one of the big debates that comes up. It was like people on the right will say socialism has never worked, never will work, and then people say, "Oh, well, what about this country?" And then the rebuttal is, "Well, when you have America paying for their entire military, then it's very easy
That
to be a
is
socialist
true, yeah.
country."
And they only have a couple million people
Yeah.
on a small scale like that. Maybe it can work.
And it's like, honestly, there's only the demographic is like 98% white.
So I don't know if any of our military budget goes towards other countries. We have a part of the budget that goes, from what I'm looking at here, it looks like foreign aid is part of our whole country's budget,
What is
which
foreign
makes up
aid?
1% of the federal budget. But 23% of that 1% in the federal budget is for military aid for other countries. And that 1% of our whole budget that goes towards other countries still accounts for $51.1 billion each year.
That's insane.
When was the last time that was taken? Because didn't we spend
This is from 2022, what I'm looking at
how much
right
did
now.
we spend on Ukraine in 1 year?
It was 200,
Yeah, it was
200
ridiculous.
200 billion?
Yeah, 250 billion or something like that.
Let's
yeah, it was
find
an
out.
unreal amount. That
Even
50
though
billion seems
Zelensky
way
just
too
bought
low.
like 3 mansions.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
Just bought like 3 mansions.
And then didn't we
250
just send
billion.
them another, or
think so.
they have something in the works like another 40 billion or something like that.
Yeah. And the Pentagon, I believe, just failed
Ridiculous.
another audit.
So it looks
So
like
there's that.
we've directed more than 75 billion in assistance to Ukraine.
Oh, only 75.
No. Maybe last we heard it was 200 million then.
This is saying 75 billion.
Man, that is so much.
I mean, it's still a lot.
For no
I
reason.
thought it was like 200.
For no reason. What, to stop Russia from doing what? Taking back land that was theirs in the 70s and 80s? To do what? Oh, they deserve to be a sovereign nation. Do they, though?
Don't a lot
If they
of them
can't defend
want to
them-
be part of Russia?
What was it that the western or the eastern side of Ukraine is heavy Russian nationalist,
Yeah.
where
Just let them.
it's not Crimea, but Kiev. I
Yeah.
think is the one. Kiev is like I
Like-
guess heavily Russia.
What-
There's a lot of pro Russia.
What would the downside be of them just Russia
Joining
or
Russia
Ukraine
again?
being part of Russia? I don't understand.
I don't know.
Like, isn't Russia doing fine?
I don't.
Minus having to, the war,
Yeah.
like losing money on the war.
Who
but-
knows? I'm not huge onto the politics of like foreigners, but
Yeah. I haven't
from
paid
what
attention
I
to Russia.
understand is that Ukraine wasn't even a country until it like the 90s, and then
Yeah, something like that.
in 2014 they had a basically civil uprising. That's when Zelensky took power, but Ukraine is
Yeah, he
allegedly
took
some
power.
yeah
August 24th, 1991 is when Ukraine became
Yeah.
a country.
before that it was a part of Russia. So let me get this straight. Ukraine is a part of Russia up until 1991, to where it basically illegally, depending on how you see it, seceded from Russia, but now Ukraine has the rights to be a sovereign nation, even though it's really a part of Russia, but if we were to do that here in America, that would be considered insurrection. So, like, if Texas right now decided to say fuck America and then become its own country,
And New Hampshire.
Texas would then be considered by a very large portion of this country to be traitors and secessionists and insurrectionists against America. So we would be justified in sending military to Texas to reclaim the land that was illegally seceded from. So how is it not justified for Russia to then take back the land that was illegally seceded from their motherland? I don't understand the viewpoints of some people. Like, this
I don't know
makes
if it
no
would be right for
sense.
America to send military into Texas to bring it
It
back to being a
wouldn't.
part of America.
It-
So I
like,
don't know if it makes it right
exactly.
for Russia to do that either.
It depends on who spins the narrative first, right? So, like, a lot of people would say, oh, Ukraine has a right to their sovereignty. So they had a right to secede from Russia in the first place? So then what would make it so terrible if the United States had some kind of divorce? But then the same people who say that Ukraine deserves sovereignty would say if Texas were to leave the Union, that would basically be insurrection and paramount to civil war. Like, where do you draw the line on your perception here? Like, how is it okay
I think it should
for
be-
one group of people to do it?
I
but
think it
then
should be
not
all
for
up to the people.
other?
They vote on it, and
Yeah.
anybody that wants to, or you don't even need to vote. Just anybody that wants to go to Russia, depending on how many people want, they cut off some land, they add that to Russia, and anybody who wanted to move to Russia, they moved to that part of Ukraine, and then everybody else moved to the part of Ukraine that didn't want to. Yeah, it'd be a mess, but it's the only thing you can really
But
do.
isn't that basically what the war is doing right now? It's carving up the land.
Same thing with the U.S.
So
At this point,
I don't see
They-
how
they
these
might just have to have
perspectives land.
all the northern states just be Democrat led, and then the southern state just have two separate countries, and just have the southern
That'd be
states
messy.
be. It would stop a lot of the fighting.
Shit, America's big enough to be 4 or 5 countries
Yes.
Yeah, it is,
if it wanted to be.
because
But-
you could fit everybody into one state. Everybody could live in Texas if they wanted to.
Mhm.
Literally everybody in the United States.
Well, if you want to get like really statistical, the entire human population could fit
Could fit in New York City.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So it's not really,
Yeah.
the human beings don't take up that much space.
I mean, that's
but we do
pile
cause a
on
lot of
each other,
damage. But it's just, it drives me wild how, sure, I can understand, oh, it's case by case scenario, but it's the same thing with Israel and Palestine right now. Is you're saying these group of people deserve something that these group of people don't deserve because of 2 generations ago this. Okay, well, what about 1,000 years ago where we have biblical text saying that these people were here first and there's evidence to say that they were? Where do you draw the line? Or like
Yeah,
me
who's the ultimate
personally,
authority?
yeah, where myself, I sit back and I'm just like, well, this sucks that it's happening, but that's their problem. Let them resolve it the way. Who are we to say, oh, Ukraina Yuslava, or whatever the catchphrase is, or, oh, I'm for Palestine or Israel? No, I'm sitting back and I'm just saying, this really sucks that this is happening because people feel a certain way,
Yeah.
but they need to resolve the issue. That's what it is. Same
think-
thing here in America. We have issues and we need to be focusing on. We can't be worried about whether Ukraine gets to stay a sovereign nation or whether Palestine is an open air prison that needs to be taken back by the Israelis or the Palestinians or the jihadists or whoever. Like, these problems are not ours. We have our own to deal with. Otherwise, we're going to do the same things to ourselves.
I think instead of dropping bombs, they should all just drop acid and then they can all live together in harmony.
There are a couple comedians who said that, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, if everybody just got high, you know.
I don't know.
There had to
I
have
hold
been
a
skit where people were like, let's not drop bombs. Let's just drop pounds of hash.
I hold a very strong viewpoint that if the whole world were to actually drop some acid together or not even together, but if everyone just happened to experience it and have a good experience that was the right experience, I think the world would be a different place. Obviously, I think that's completely unrealistic for it to ever happen, especially because, the strong religious people over there would
Yeah.
not be
What
putting
happens
chemicals into their
with
body. But
they're extremely violent people if they take acid? Would they get more violent?
I was actually
there
just
is
about
a
to,
possibility that it could happen if they got agitated to a certain point.
So that
But
could be very bad.
most of the time, people on acid don't want to be violent. They want to love everything.
but that's the thing.
That's the
Isn't
type of people that want to take acid.
Exactly. So are we working under the assumption that everyone would have a similar experience? Because typically
'cause if you-
people that do take acid are all not the same, but
So
very
there's
similar.
there's one big common theme that pops up for a lot of people that have dropped acid, and that it's we're all one, we're all connected. And I feel like if a lot more people had that revelation, I feel like we could start to live a little bit more in harmony if
Well,
people
it's time
change
to get
their
a hold
perception.
of a sheet of 1,000 and let's see what happens.
Oh, we need a lot more than that. We'd need a sheet of 7.6 billion, is it now?
Let's start small first. Let's
Yeah,
do
we
an
can
experiment with
exclude-
Try it on an
1,000.
entire
We can
country
exclude
and
the
see.
children.
Well, let's just start out with a small community. Let's say we'll do 100, and then we'll do 1,000.
I mean, as
and
much
then
as-
we'll do
You would have
2,000.
you
As
would
much
have
as
to
I'm
do
a
it
big-
on like a somewhere having civil war.
I mean, as much as I'm a big proponent for it, there's already something I can even argue against my own thought about how the Manson family used to drop LSD, and look what they ended up doing.
Well, they were basically a cult, and a lot of the women were brainwashed by Charles, right?
But
So-
yes, but they did used to drop acid, and then look what they ended up doing. So
Well, Charles was a very manipulative man, and it's a little disturbing how brainwashing works and everything like that.
Mhm.
Like, I actually just started on because you brought up Baki, the anime. I actually just started rewatching Fire Force as well.
Oh,
And Giovanni, the scientist, like, it's very clear that he's sociopathic. He's the one who wears like the bird beak mask or
Oh,
whatever.
yeah.
But yeah, he's
Yeah, I
very
haven't seen that in like a
clearly a
year,
sociopath who dives deep into psychology and very clearly psychologically manipulates through gaslighting, narcissistic behavior,
Have they come out with a new
abuse.
season of that yet, or just the two?
Just two so
Just the
far.
two. Man, oh, they gotta do
So I could see if you have somebody that is under such psychological strain, doing psychedelics might not be very good. It could really break some things in a person.
Ooh, I think next week we should, or 2 weeks from now, we should just do an anime episode, and Adam's gonna have to watch 80 years worth of
Jesus.
anime in 2
So
weeks and get
what you
caught
have
up.
to do
that's
is you
where
have
I,
to-
that's where I wish I could plug into a machine in the back of
And
my
just
brain
have
and
it
just
all
boom,
input
upload
What
it,
we're gonna
upload
start
it in
you
80
with-
seconds instead of 80 years.
We're gonna start you with a real easy one, okay? It's
Speed
called
Racer.
One Piece. All right.
No, Speed Racer.
No, we have to start him with One Piece, so he gets to watch the animation from the '80s all the way to the.
That was
Yeah.
99 it started.
Yeah. Well,
98, something
the
like
animation itself was.
It
felt
looks like it's
the
from the,
80s.
yeah.
You only have about 1,200 and some episodes to watch, so you'll be okay.
1080?
1,087 right now,
Yeah,
I
something
think.
like that.
Yeah.
To add to what we were just talking about, though, I've always pondered this and I've questioned it with Amjad. How come it seems like all the people through history that are good at manipulating and brainwashing, that they've all used it for negative? What could happen if somebody had that ability and that skill and they actually used it for something positive in a way that could actually change people or their community or the
You could make
planet
the
in a
case that-
positive way?
You can make the case that Jesus did.
I was just going to say that. Yeah, Jesus said that.
He,
But
I-
So how do
I-
we get more people
he
like
might be
that?
the only one.
How do we get more
No,
people
I
like
mean-
him or like Buddha or people that have, the ability to do things for good instead of using it for
Yeah.
for evil?
Well,
Although even some of these evil people, as much as I hate to say it, they thought they were using their ability for what they perceived to be good.
Well, one of the common themes you see with people like that is they are incredibly intelligent. And the
Mhm.
problem with intelligent people is if it's not catered the right way, if it's not like if somebody isn't taught properly how to harness such intelligence in a reinforcing way, they tend to look down on other people.
Mm-hmm.
So if you're an incredibly intelligent person and you go through your whole life seeing how dumb other people around you are, you start to see them as less than. So it's easier for you to say,
Just
they're
admit it's
stupid,
bad.
I can manipulate them and use them to my ends. You don't really see them as people, you see them as tools to be used. So that's why a lot of intelligent people are kind of sociopathic or psychotic, just flat out.
That's
And
why
they
some
will
of the
manipulate people in a way to their own means, because it's like, you're not as smart as me, obviously you don't have the basis to be doing these things, so why don't you just, I use you for my own means.
that's why some of the most evil dictators in history have been extremely intelligent.
Yeah, and charismatic.
Mhm.
Those seem to be like the two very defining features. Is you can't just be intelligent, but you have to be intelligent enough to be able to charismatically charge people.
Mhm.
You have to be able to.
You got to be Hitler.
them.
You got to be Hitler screaming at Mussolini in a room for 3 hours high on meth to convince him to go to war with you.
Yeah,
I'm pretty sure that's the story I heard
That
on,
is the
on
story.
JRE once.
he was his personal doctor. He tried something new with Hitler, where Hitler was saying he was having like headaches or something, and his regular regiment of medication wasn't working, so he did something new for Hitler. And yes, that is the story. Is he was just amped for
High
3
as a
hours.
kite, just screaming at Mussolini to convince him to go to war with him.
Wild. But then all throughout history, every time there's been some kind of major social change, there have been these stories of very charismatic and intelligent people who have taken the charge. We have, I mean, even our own lifetimes, we've had Kennedy, we've had Abraham Lincoln, we've had George Washington.
I'll even use, because I think he's pretty charismatic, and I'm not saying he could do something evil. I think the possibility is there for him to do
Always.
bad things, but Trudeau. I think
I think he's evil.
that's
Oh,
what I mean.
absolutely.
He could easily have the capabilities, and he's very charismatic.
The only reason why he got elected, and a lot of people will admit this, is because he's handsome.
Hmm.
Is he convinced a lot of women to vote for him because
Yeah,
he was
people like beautiful. They like beautiful
Beautiful people.
people,
Yeah.
regardless of they'll look the other way,
handsome. It's kind of wild.
depending on what they do. It's sometimes even then.
But
Like, a lot of times
the same case could be made for Hitler. He was Time Magazine Person of the Year in 1942 or something, and one of the surprising tales where a lot of women found him attractive. It's just what it is. Same with Charles Manson.
Yeah, like
he
a
was an
lot,
attractive man.
like how a lot of women will want somebody from prison even though they had a double homicide, and like, oh well, he's really good looking, so I'm just gonna look past that.
It's the same thing goes for men. We will see a beautiful woman and we won't think twice, whereas she could really be a very nasty person. She could treat everybody around her like absolute garbage, and we'll just be like, that's okay. She's beautiful. Something wrong with humans in that regard. Same thing could be said about Donald Trump too, though. Like, he's a businessman and he's very charismatic, but if he keeps getting pushed in certain ways, it is very easy to see how he could become very vindictive to the point of like fascistic control.
Yeah, I could
it's
definitely see that too.
almost-
The left pushing him to the
Yeah.
edge, and then he just
I-
snaps. And
I
I
think-
feel like our
I think
country.
that's what they're doing to him on purpose right now.
I think
and
our country's
he's
heading
close.
towards fascistic control, whether it's left or right. And I think there's a power struggle right now to see where that fascistic control is going to go. I mean, I feel like the road has already been paved
yeah, there.
for full control in this country. Ever since 9/11, things have just been heading down that road to where the government has more and more and more control
yeah, they're
until
just seeing what they can get.
there's
going
going to get to a
and it's
point, whether it's left or right,
astounding.
somebody's going to just take over and be like, this is how things are now.
I mean, we could just see, for examples, how much they were able to get away with just with the pandemic, like
Yeah,
the
how many
lockdowns
rights
and everything.
that were willing
Yeah.
to
Yo.
sign away for a little bit of comfort.
So many
Little bit of
people were
safety.
so willing to just like tattle on their neighbors.
Yeah.
It's crazy. And then people were like, "Oh, we could never end up like Nazi Germany." Really?
Yeah,
Look
we
at what
can.
happened during the pandemic.
Yeah, we
It was
can.
literally
Same thing
Nazi
with
Germany
J6, where people were,
telling on their neighbors.
yeah, they were like, oh, they were there, and then
yeah,
they go and arrest
this
them.
person said they were going. Okay. Like, what? Oh, I could never be a Nazi sympathizer or an apologist. Really?
Then why were people trying
90%
to?
of you are.
Then why were people trying to run up on and fight people that were walking through Walmart without a mask on?
Yeah.
That, in a way, is that type of
You
Nazi
are a
behavior.
Nazi.
Yeah,
You
that
are
is
a
that Nazi
Nazi
behavior.
Who saw a Jew without the star.
Hmm
You saw a Jew without the patch on their arm, so you told your Gestapo.
Did
Oh,
you
I
see
could
the-
never. You are.
Speaking of J6, there was. Did you get to the part where I don't know who it was because I wasn't watching it, I was just listening to it, but they were saying how
The debate with
yeah,
Alex.
yeah.
I'm only like 40 minutes in.
Okay, maybe you watched it. Somebody was saying like how everybody there was violent and none of the cops were letting anybody in. They were all breaking windows, all smashing doors, and all forcing themselves in. When there was clear,
That was probably one of the Krasenstein brothers.
yeah, there
but
was
I haven't gone
clear
there yet.
video of cops waving them in, and Alex Jones was like, "There's video of it everywhere," and they're like,
Yeah.
"No, there wasn't."
There's
He's like, "Yeah, I don't know what to tell you."
there's
there's-
more video evidence of the not violence
Yeah.
than there is of the violence. Every video that we see of the violence of J6 is the same footage
Over and over
replayed
again.
over and over
Mhm.
again. Whereas just last year, Jacob Chansley, the MAGA shaman, he was exonerated of everything because video after him getting his sentencing, 2 days after him getting his sentencing, Tucker Carlson had scoop evidence video
Yeah,
that he
yep.
released on Fox News that literally showed the cops opening the doors for him, giving him a personal tour,
Yep.
and praying with him. Exculpatory evidence. We still have video evidence coming out. Even right now, today, I bet there's somebody sifting through video evidence
Yeah,
because
yep.
there's over 10,000 hours worth of it of people being waved through peacefully.
And what was the video that came out to where the cops were like bumping fists with the protesters or something like that? They
I don't know.
like arrested somebody, and then when they got inside, they like took the handcuffs off, shook their hand, and was like talking with them and stuff.
I know that's one of the claims that Alex has made. I haven't seen the video
Yeah,
myself, but
I seen the video. I
even
just forgot what the
yeah.
context was. And
But
it
even
was-
like 2 days after January 6th actually happened, there was a video of one of the protesters who was known to be an Antifa member, but he was there wearing MAGA gear.
yeah,
And now it's proven that there was over like 150 federal agents
Yeah.
there,
yeah, because you got the
Yeah,
whole
there was a
Rahab
lot of federal
situation
agents
and-
getting rowdy there.
which you could
Stirring things
absolutely
up.
take the argument and say, well, there had to be because they were at the nation's capital. There was like 1 million people.
Yeah, maybe they had to
So,
be there, but they didn't
yeah.
have to help rile things up the way they did.
For sure. These
Yeah, because there were some of the ones that
informants
were
or
saying
federal
"Let's storm
agents-
the gate."
Yeah.
Mhm.
These federal agents absolutely, as soon as stuff started popping off, could have ran the other way or like gotten over the barricade, said, I'm agent so and so, I'm going to give me a helmet, I'll join
Mhm.
whatever. But like, even things with like Ray Epps we've seen, and for some reason he was let go for 3 years, even though there were text messages that were released 5-6 days after all this happened where he was so proud in claiming that he was the one that orchestrated the whole thing.
Yeah.
I don't know. One of the best arguments that I've heard for this, it's kind of like a gotcha scenario, which I don't like, but this one was really clever. So the largest demographic in this country that owns a majority of the guns, right, decided one day just to go to the Capitol to try and overthrow the government without any of those guns. So the dumbest people, which a lot of people will say, the dumbest people in this country, MAGA, were smart enough to go to the Capitol without any guns to have a story where they were trying to take over the Capitol, but if they failed, they would then have plausible deniability because they had no weapons. But if they had the weapons, they would have succeeded. What? The largest demographic of people in this country
Well,
who
it would've
have
been- it would've
90%
been-
of the weapons.
It would have been hard to get guns in because DC's a no gun zone.
It would not have been hard. You have 1 million people marching down the street. It would not have been hard to
If-
get guns. And
If they would have convened beforehand and just forced their way into DC, yeah, it wouldn't have been hard. But if it's just people flying in, trying to get on planes, trying to land there, then
Sure.
Driving in would be much easier
Yeah.
to be able to get it in.
Plenty of people outside the.
You don't
states
ever
would-
want to drive in DC anyways, though. That city is confusing to drive around.
But it blows my mind how a lot of people. This is a left and right issue. I take this a lot.
Yeah, so what happens if Donald Trump wins the election? Is the left going to try something very similar to what they're blaming the right for doing on January 6th?
They're going to say the same thing they said in 2016. They're going to say he stole the election with Russian collusion interference.
Or
And-
they're going
and
to
then
cause some
the
kind of
right-
issue at the Capitol the same way things happened on January 6th.
They get away with it though. They've stormed like 4 or 5 capitals since January 6th.
Didn't
and even
they-
before that,
I think the most recent one I heard about was in Tennessee, right?
they've done
and
it
didn't
so
they
many
light a
times.
courthouse on fire too?
They've lit police precincts on fire. They've lit a church on fire. They've assaulted the White House.
Well, to them, that's just
So-
peaceful protest.
yes, it's just people protest.
It's justified.
Yeah, it's justifiable. But that's one of the major problems. Like, so the people with the most guns decided to try and storm the Capitol building to take over the country by force without any means of force. Okay, sure, let's go down that route and say that's plausible. Okay, so they would have taken over the building and then occupied it for Donald Trump.
Until National Guard came in and took them away.
Yeah. Or the rest of the country would have said, "Oh shit. This ain't happening." And then they lost all support whatsoever.
Yeah.
I don't it was a bunch of people who were really really upset and felt like the election was
cheated.
stolen.
Yeah.
Which there's still strong enough evidence to suggest that it's a possibility.
No, it was.
So we've all seen
And now we can say it.
yeah. But there's the chart and the graph. We've all seen it. 3:00 in the morning, all of a sudden, Joe Biden gets 300,000 votes.
96%.
Yeah, my brothers were telling me that after the election, like I didn't stay awake. They were both awake, and they said the news was on. Trump had a decent lead,
Mhm.
and then all of a sudden it came back from commercial break, and Joe Biden had a big lead. Like
So
almost like that.
Yeah, well then
the entire election was very, very weird. For some reason, they decided to stop counting, which has never happened in an election. For some reason, at 1:00 in the morning, the country just said, "We're going to stop," and we're like,
yeah, and it was everybody.
Okay. And then people woke up at 6:00 in the morning, and Joe Biden had won when Trump was winning. It was like, hold up, I
Yeah.
thought we stopped counting.
hmm
Oh no, we just told you we stopped counting.
They
then
stopped
we-
counting all the votes
yeah.
for Trump.
We looked at the graph, and you can see the graph moving, right? You had the two sections, and then right at like 3:00 in the morning, out of nowhere, 99%.
That's about when my brothers said it was, where Joe Biden all of a sudden just took a big lead out of
Yeah.
nowhere.
99% of
they
the
said it
votes
was-
counted was for Joe Biden. To
And
where
they
he
said it was
jumped
like
into the lead.
they said it was like as quick as one like commercial break. Like they went to commercial break, Trump was leading, commercials over, now Joe Biden's way ahead out of nowhere.
But there was just so much funny things that happened. Like almost instantly, there were videos where these polling places were putting up posters over the
Yeah.
windows, which, okay, sure, you can have an argument that people were getting a little bit too rowdy outside, but you can't legally do that. So that's one thing. There was more video evidence where women were seen pulling out boxes from underneath, where people have argued, oh, those were mail-in ballots that were going to be counted at a later time. Okay, but why did all the other counters leave and then just these 3 people
Yeah.
stayed when we were all told counting was done? And then we had the burst water pipe that ended up just being
A
leaky toilet.
Yeah, they had to send everybody home.
There were so
Yeah.
many questions that went unanswered about the entire election. Even
They called a
myself.
leaking toilet a burst water.
Yeah, they
pipe?
Yes,
said the
they said it was a-
water main broke or something. They had to send everybody home, and then it was just the
It was a
toilet
leaky
was
toilet.
leaking.
That sounds like me being dramatic if I cut my finger at home and I tell Erica, "Oh my God, I'm gonna need stitches."
Yeah.
Yeah,
Overly dramatic.
it's just crazy that so many questions went unanswered, and a lot of people felt like for the last 4 years we have listened to nothing but Donald Trump is a fascist who stole the election in 2016 with the help of Russian collusion, which was then completely disproven. But now, since we're saying, hey, we've got some questions, we're being told to shut the fuck up.
Yeah, you're not allowed to ask
When
questions.
you tell millions and millions of people to just shut their mouths, what do you think is going to happen? There's going to be violent outbursts, just like we saw in 2020 with the George Floyd riots. People got sick and tired of being told to shut up, sit down, put your mask on, stay at home, and do what we tell you.
So speaking of the violence, and I think it's strange that right after this Leave the World Behind movie is released, now there's soon coming, or maybe it's been released already, if not, I know it's coming soon, a movie called Civil War. I don't think there's a...
A24 film?
I think it's just called Civil War. I'm not sure.
I think the production company is A24.
Okay.
And yeah, it's a civil war where like Texas and California joined forces and things like that. I've seen
Man,
some
that's an
commercials
odd
for it.
scenario. I feel like you'd never see that in real life, Texas and California. Although California is probably a lot like New York, isn't it? Where most of the state's probably more red, and it's only the big city areas that are blue.
The
Yeah.
West Coast is blue,
Hmm.
and the entire rest of the the state is.
It's like
The,
Oregon
uh,
too. I feel
The
like
argument for
the west coast of Oregon
Texas-
is blue, where the rest is red.
the argument for Texas and California joining forces would be basically Texas. They're very close for one; they're close states. But Texas has access to a major portion of firearms, right? As to where California has major access to imports for food and production of food. So even though they might not have the same political views, in a sense of resources and being able to actually like maintain a stable relationship and an economy, those states kind of work out.
I'm just sitting here wondering, like, is this predictive programming where there's the Leave the World Behind movie and now a Civil War movie, when there's already a lot of political tension between the two sides in this country? Are they showing us what's about to happen?
Well, it's the argument they have to tell us
programming.
what they're doing before they do
Mhm.
it, so that
So they don't feel guilty.
yeah, it's possible. I mean, if you really think about it, media shapes people's perception. As us growing up, we've always seen like, we've seen a lot of media and videos and stuff like that of like the little guy winning the scenario, or like the
Mhm.
rebellious smaller group overcoming the evil factions and things like that. We've always seen stuff like that, so we kind of fantasize that. If you start creating media that shows nothing but two sides in constant conflict, the next generation is going to grow up with that perception
Mhm.
where this is how it's always been. There's always been the left and the right fighting. There's always been A versus B. There's always been black versus white. This
Man
is just how
versus
it
woman.
is. This is how it's always been. This is all we know.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Sadly,
Sadly.
that's where again, everyone just needs to drop acid and love each other.
I do think. Oh, speaking of, have you seen any commercials for Mood?
What is
Mood
it? What is-
gummies and Mood weed. I've been seeing a lot of
No.
advertisements on YouTube and stuff like this. It's purely legitimate cannabis retail. It's called Mood. They do like gummies and different cannabis products and stuff like that. It looks really, really cool and be very, very awesome if we got like sponsorship by them. But you should look into it just to see what you think about it. It's just they're called Mood gummies. I think
Okay.
it's just mood.com if you look it up or something. They seem pretty
Let's see
legit.
what
Their
pops
commercials
up.
are funny and they're fun to watch for sure. It's interesting stuff. I think that's the next billion-dollar industry though. Like we can already see from when did Colorado legalize? Like 2015, 16?
2017, 2016,
Ooh, was it?
somewhere around there.
But they almost in 1 year became an out of deficit.
Yeah.
Like it was wild.
I'd say cannabis is already a billion-dollar industry. I think the next industry you're going to see boom is psilocybin mushrooms. They're already becoming legal in Canada, decriminalized on the West Coast, and you're already starting to see like mushroom sticker shops opening up on the West Coast, similar to how we have the sticker shops here in New York for cannabis.
Psilocybin would be nice. I think that would help a lot of people. I mean, just like what is
Even-
it?
even if-
Ketamine treatments for
even if
depression
people-
and stuff like that.
Even if people don't want to like macro dose and go on full blown trips, I think
Yeah.
micro dosing could also do a lot of people a lot of good because,
It would just change
I've
a lot
known-
of people's mood.
I've known quite a few people in my life that have been on pharmaceutical medications for anxiety or depression, and the medications they were on actually made their quality of life worse. And
I mean, we all have a family member like that, right?
exactly, or their
So-
suicidal thoughts got worse after
Yeah.
being on these medications.
Or if you don't have them, you
Mhm.
get
You end up
just-
getting-
Yeah, where the micro dosing, at most you're supposed to only do it twice a week. I know some people that do it more, but like I feel like that's one of the reasons you'll never see that through pharmaceutical companies because mushrooms are so cheap to grow. And if you only got to take something twice a week that's that cheap, there's not a lot of money to be made on it.
But that's the problem. The pharmaceutical industry will find a way to like dose them out. Think of, I would say, think of like the natural properties of poppy and coca and stuff like that. Once humans started playing around with it, I think it lost a lot of its potency. So natural stuff like lilac and things like that, if we use them as intended and people still had the knowledge to grow them themselves, we wouldn't need for all these pharmaceuticals and basically drug cartels.
Yeah.
If we just knew how to do these herbal things ourselves, our lives would be a lot better. Instead, we have family members who are basically junkies to like morphine and different substances like this for their entire life, and they're just told by their doctors, oh, you're going to be taking this for your entire life because we say so, when they become addicted and just doing the worst things imaginable because they're addicted to these substances. There's been plenty of studies about ketamine itself and its effects on people with depression or PTSD.
Ketamine has shown great promise for treating what they call treatment resistant depression, where you've been treated in every other way, given medications, and nothing has helped. Somehow, ketamine has helped
It's
pull
a
people out of
breakthrough.
depression. And another one would be for PTSD is MDMA. I hate saying the acronym now because of minor attracted persons, but MAPS, the Multidisciplinary Association for Psychedelic Studies, it was only a small scale study. And again, I'll give Dr. Bronner's a shout out
Maybe you
because they
should just
donated.
start calling it MASP.
Yeah, Dr. Bronner's donated $5 million to the research, so I got to give them a shout out. But it was after 3 controlled sessions with their therapist, the people that had PTSD, I think it was somewhere around 85% of them after the trials no longer qualified for having PTSD because it helped that significantly.
That's a crazy number.
And
Because
just-
a lot of times it only
and
needs
just-
to be like 40 or 50% for something to get
and
pushed
just
through.
and just in as little as 3 sessions too, 3 controlled sessions where I think they gave them
That's
like
wild.
75 milligrams.
How long in between?
I think it was maybe a month in between each session.
The problem is with that, that's basically considered a cure. There's no money in cures.
Exactly.
So there's no money in a cure. Which is one of the major downfalls of capitalism, which absolutely I will agree with. But without it, I don't know. Who knows where we would be without capitalism?
I'm on this mood website. I'm trying to see if they ship to New York.
I believe they do. I keep getting advertisements for here in New York, so it's interesting. I don't know.
It's not so much capitalism. It's the corrupt government that gets a kickback from
Yeah.
these companies, and if somebody's cutting away from the companies, then
Yeah. The companies
the
have gotten
government's
too
gonna
big, where they've
yeah.
dipped into the pockets of politicians that end up doing all this stuff. As in, it's the same thing with socialism. Like pure socialism, if it could be realized, would be absolutely a utopia for humankind. But it's not possible because of humans. Same thing with capitalism. If pure capitalism could work to its fullest extent and ideals, it would be a utopia for humankind.
Yeah, and there's not
problem
supposed
is
to be
humans.
there's supposed to be steps taken to prevent monopolization.
Yeah.
But
If for some
That
reason
they
a lot of
only-
lobbies have worked a way around that.
yeah,
and
there's some places, there's some industries that have a monopolization on whatever
Yeah.
industry they're in, and
even right now, we always see the charts of like 1 or 2 companies own like 60 other smaller companies where
Mhm.
they're like, oh, we're not a monopoly. You own the two competitors of the same thing.
Yeah.
What are you talking about? You are a monopoly.
Like
well,
fast
not
food.
under the current guidelines of our laws and legal system. Then we need to change the laws
Yeah.
and the legal
Yeah,
system
yeah.
because you found a loophole.
It's
They
Now that you
found-
found a
yeah.
loophole, we need to find something to block that
They
loophole.
find loopholes to be a monopoly that's not considered a legal monopoly.
Yeah, under our current laws or
Mhm.
standings. But if you just look at the situation, it's like that's very clearly a monopoly. Not
Mhm.
according to your laws. I don't care.
Yeah, it,
You're
it
a
should
monopoly.
be laws should be written for intent, not to be taken literally.
Yeah. Well, then it could be too loose. It should be too. Ooh.
It should be what makes sense. If you go to a random person and be like, "Hey, one company owns everything," they'd be like, "Well, yeah, that shouldn't be allowed."
But here's the problem with making sense. What makes sense to you might not make sense to another person. And at the same time, all somebody would have to do is convince enough people, which very clearly is pretty easy to do, convince enough people that the way you see it is the way it should be. So you might say you write a law because of you intend to stop something from happening. And 20 years from now, somebody could say, oh, that's not what they intended to mean because what we're doing is this. If I said that right. Or
Yeah, I get what you
Yeah.
mean.
I get where you're coming from.
Yeah.
Yes, intent does make sense. But then who defines, like, further down the line, somebody else's intentions? Oh, well, that's not what I intended to do. I didn't mean to own all 10 of my competitors. It's just they sucked at what they did.
Well, then they
I
should get
intended
they should
to
get
make
some of
a-
the best lawyers instead of having it loose. Just have it so specific that there's no way to. They just get the smartest minds to
But that's
write
how,
it. To
that's
write
how
it
we
in a-
get these bills and laws that are like 20 pages long. But yeah, every
That's
time we
fine.
see
20
somebody
pages
that
isn't bad.
finds a loophole, we absolutely should rewrite the law almost
Yeah.
immediately.
Oh yeah.
The problem is these companies
What
earn
they should
enough
do
money,
is do the
find a
same thing as
loophole,
game
and then
testers.
lobby.
They let game testers play the game for a year or two before it comes out, find bugs, which could be loopholes. They'd be like, "Hey, try to break the system as much as you can, and we'll see how people do it, and then we'll fix it." In
I
accordance
mean,
to
they
what
do
you
that
find.
with hackers and stuff like
Yeah,
that. They
yep.
hire
to see if they can break into their system.
Yeah,
and if
yeah.
they can,
They
then
hire old
they make it
hackers,
better.
people that have like life sentences for things. They do that, but I don't think there's enough money in that. Right? People see the outcome of money. It would be more lucrative for me to continue to break the system the way that I see fit. It would be more lucrative for me to make as much money possible.
Yeah. I'm saying for
And
an
then
ideal,
throw
an
money
ideal
into
system.
somebody else's pocket to keep the system the way it is so I can keep exploiting it rather than me finding the loophole and telling you about it so you can fix it to where then I have to find another loophole. Why not just throw money at somebody else and say, keep this the way it is because I found something that breaks the system that I can exploit but nobody else can.
Well, that wouldn't be possible if they did it in the beginning to where there are no loopholes.
Yeah. But you can't see that far into the future. I mean,
Well,
People- people make the,
that's why they test it for years and have the brightest minds try to break it. And if 1,000 of the brightest minds can't break it, it's probably not breakable.
yeah. The same thing could have been said about the Constitution, you know. A lot of the Constitution's laws are, not laws, but its writings are ironclad, yet somehow people have found loopholes.
Well, it's not even loopholes.
By
They-
bearing arms, they meant literal bear arms. Hello.
Yeah,
they
it's
didn't
just-
know
they're
that we were
trying
going to have
to-
semi-automatic nukes.
They're trying to convince others that it shouldn't be taken literal and it should be taken in the context back then.
Mhm.
But in that case, there were massive weapons back then that people
Mhm.
owned. Like
A lot of people like
ship
to-
cannons that could destroy towns.
I think
Yeah.
we should all be able to own a ship cannon if we
Yeah.
want.
Well,
Absolutely.
that's one of the major arguments that people like to always use is they only had muskets back then. Actually, no. There's a system
they
called.
had machine guns.
I don't think those came about to the 1800s.
They were called plucker guns, I believe, and they
Yeah, they were
like
primitive.
crank wheel.
Yeah.
Yeah. But even before that, people like to say, "Oh, the Constitution was written in a way because people only owned muskets. What they don't realize is there was a privateer market of called systems of marques, Marquess, where private ship owners, privateers who
Yeah.
had cannons on their ship, were hired and then used their armaments. So back then, it was perfectly legal for you to own a cannon.
Yeah.
It was. A lot of people just like to think, oh, they just had these, put it on the ground, shove the ball in, puck it down, boom.
Yeah. Yeah,
No,
'cause-
they had cannons.
Yeah,
Like this was a legit thing. You can't compare to nowadays where, sure, if
Yeah.
you have the money to buy a,
The puckle gun was invented in 1718.
yeah. Oh, 17?
It was,
1718.
I
it
thought
was
it was
like-
like 18.
It's
it was
20,
20
30.
barrels that you would.
No, I don't think it was
Yeah.
quite that. I think that's the Gatling gun, which was 1884.
The
But
puckle
the
gun was
puckle
like
gun
the-
is a tripod-mounted, single-barreled flintlock weapon fitted with a manually operated revolving cylinder. Puckle advertised its main application as an anti-boarding gun for use in ships.
So I'm thinking of something different then.
Yeah, the
The
Gatling gun
Gatling
was what I was
gun,
thinking of. I
yeah.
thought that was the 1860s.
It was 1884. Yeah, that's the
But
one.
they,
I
they probably
crank it.
had. They probably had. They were probably working on it for
Yeah.
a long time.
Mhm.
They probably knew that. The
There
founding
was-
fathers weren't stupid. They knew there was going to be.
Advancements. I
Yeah.
don't think they could have ever imagined a nuke, but
Yeah, maybe. Yeah, maybe
you would be
not.
hard pressed to convince certain people that the founding fathers meant that you could privately own an F-35 fighter jet.
That would be cool.
But if you have the money, why not? Sure, you could do a lot of damage with that, but the fact that you would own one, people would know that you own one.
Yeah.
Like, so you would have to be able to afford the fuel, the maintenance, your own private airstrip.
Mhm.
If you are that wealthy, you have the GDP of a small country. So why wouldn't you be allowed to own one? Now, do I think people have the right to own nuclear arms? No. But if nuclear fission is the cleanest energy we have nowadays, would it really be so far-fetched to assume that everybody has a small nuclear reactor in their own home for private use? No. So...
Yeah, I guess where would you draw the line? And
Exactly.
maybe no line.
When it comes to things that could destroy mankind, I think that is the line. Like, some people could make the argument where, oh, well, if it means to bear arms, then that means I can have chemical warfare or biological. And it's like, well, you're not.
But at the same
using
time,
that
a
to
nuke is not a
defend-
defensive weapon. That's
Yeah.
a weapon of that's
That's a
something
weapon of
used to
mass destruction.
destroy an entire city.
Well, no, you could argue that it is a defensive weapon because we have nukes to deter other people from using their nukes.
An entire
So-
country.
Other people
That's
started
not a-
making
that's
nukes
not an
because we
individual,
did, though.
Yeah. So that's an argument to be had, but I think that argument has been had where people
At
don't
the same
have
time,
right.
you could probably say no nukes, and then that's it. Everything else is fine.
At a certain point, it does become a little ridiculous or redundant
Yeah.
to even have such weaponry.
Yeah, and
But-
even the argument be like, well, what about nukes? Be like, no.
Yeah.
Like there's you
Well,
don't have to have a hard line.
Make your argument. It was like, well, if I'm trying to defend my home, it's not really.
Yeah, I'm not going
used-
to nuke the guy in front of me.
because then I'll
I
die
would,
too,
fuck 'em.
and so will all of my neighbors. Yeah, but like then I'm dying, and then all of my neighbors are dying. That's not considered self-defense.
Yeah, I guess.
So,
I guess what
but
it,
for me to own a shotgun,
That's
or
actually
a
kind of
rifle-
why when I was in Iraq, they stopped having 50 caliber machine guns mounted on the top of Humvees and MRAPs because they did way too much collateral damage. You could shoot your enemy and then
it's gonna go
that
through
bullet goes
them
through him and then
Yeah.
3
a
or 4
mile-
more
mile-
houses. Yeah.
keep
to
going
not
for a
be
mile, yeah.
Islamophobic or anything like that, but they didn't really have the most sound structures in Afghanistan and Iraq. So I
Yeah,
could
you could
definitely see a 50 cal going
You
through
could shoot
or
one of
three
them and it'd go
buildings.
through half a city block.
Yeah, yeah. I could see it, but yeah, I totally understand that the founding fathers didn't mean for me to own a tank, which I mean I should be allowed to.
Well, no,
But
no, tanks were around back then.
yeah.
Well, very.
Uh,
It was like man-powered, heavy armor on a I don't know how to explain it.
Well, not back when
They
the
were-
Constitution, because there were no vehicles, but they did have buggies with like armor, and of course it would
Yeah.
travel with the guns in the back and stuff like that.
Oh my God.
But even
What's
like
that?
if I wanted to own a tank, I don't see why I couldn't be allowed to own a tank.
Yeah, well, you can, but it just can't be operational.
I'm
Yeah.
just immature. That's all, Jesse. The name of the first ever tank was Little Willie,
Little Willie.
and because I'm immature, I'm of course laughing at that.
Well, I mean,
What was that, like 19
kinda-
something?
1915. The second model they called Big Willie.
that definitely sounds like the,
It's funny when you put them together.
Sounds like the tank hit puberty and grew up.
It kind of sounds like when people make fun of guys with big trucks. And the
Yeah.
little Willie, you're
'Cause they-
compensating for something.
Yeah, because I'm pretty sure they had things before that where people would be under it with tracks, and they would just be holding things and pushing it along with it was just
I
like
don't know.
armor on tracks, and they would be pushing it, and then there'd be people
You said the
with
first
openings with guns and stuff.
the first implementation of a tank was 1915.
Correct.
Because didn't Leonardo da Vinci come up with designs for tanks?
He came up with designs for airplanes too. I'm pretty sure.
Yeah, I think Leonardo da Vinci's thing of a tank, it was made out of wood, but it was kind of like a not a pyramid, but like a cone. It was like a cone that had cannons in it.
Yeah.
Right. But there was so the kind of tank you're talking about, that would have to be on like train tracks or something. Because the first
The first tanks had just regular wheels, don't they?
I don't know if those would be I don't know. I'm trying to think back to history classes where the first implementation of like of a tank in warfare did have wheels, but then that failed very quickly because of the way warfare was done
Yeah.
with trenches. So they became the tracked wheels to
so
where they could go over.
Yeah.
But that's
I should
still.
know. I did a report on tanks back in like 9th grade. I should.
But I'm still trying to
I
think.
should
They
know.
they would have had to have used internal combustion engines, which would have been Henry
Yeah,
Ford. So I don't know. I mean, there might have been armored vehicles where it was like a Jeep with a big gun on the back, sure, or a cannon. I could see mobile artillery as being considered the first ever tanks.
Yeah.
Sure.
So I view tank as just anything that's armored that can tank something,
Yeah.
like tank a hit.
So it does look like they had armored wagons back in the day.
Oh.
Is that what I'm?
I would imagine there were some during the.
something like that.
Yeah.
I would imagine there were things like that in the Civil War, where there were probably horse and buggy.
That's what I was thinking. That was in the
They're almost like, I mean, I guess you could kind of say it's tank-like.
yeah.
tank adjacent.
I think
maybe?
it still had to, I think it still had to be pulled by a
adjacent.
horse, but
Or you could Flintstone it.
I guess they called them war wagons.
That just makes me think of the old realm of Warhammer. They had what they considered tanks, but it was like 4 giant wheels and just a metal shell over top of it.
Oh, have you ever played
Oh wow, armored wagons date back to
like the 1600s or something like that?
119 BC
Oh, never mind. What?
in China.
Hmm.
Interesting.
Well, the Persians and everything had war chariots, and that's basically their version of a tank.
A chariot, the thing you stand on?
Yeah.
It's not a tank.
Yeah,
You can get hit.
sure, you could get hit, but you had horses in the front,
Yeah.
and on the wheels they would have the long spikes,
It's
and
not
you
a
would.
tank. I'd say it's a well,
The way we see tanks, but back in that kind of warfare, even cavalry would have been considered the tank regiment because they could just plow through people.
no.
Yeah. Okay.
Plow through people until you take your sword and just chop the horse's legs and it goes nose dives.
That's why there was always multiple horses. Horses? Horses?
Horse eye.
Horse eye, yeah.
Horse?
I like horse eye.
That just sounds like some mythological, you silly horse eye.
Yeah, I think it's horses.
Horses.
Heath.
Hersey.
Because if mouse is meese, then it's got to be
Mouse
heese.
isn't me. Wait, what is mouse then? Wait,
Mice.
Mice.
Mice
No,
is-
mice. You son of a bitch.
See, meese though should be plural for moose, since geese is plural for goose.
Yeah.
I feel like it should be meese.
Yeah, if something
But it's
rhymes
not.
with it, it should, the
Exactly.
plural should also rhyme.
Exactly. Goose.
This is why the English
Geese,
language
moose,
in like
meese.
1,000 years is going to create very, very harsh wars.
I mean, in 1,000 years, it's possible there might not even be an English language. I mean, look how many other languages through history have probably come and gone. I mean,
I mean,
nobody.
English has been a thing since like 400 or 500. It was very
Yeah.
different back then, but you
Mhm.
could
so
you
yeah,
could
let me.
understand somebody to an extent.
So yeah, let me rephrase that. The English we're
Oh.
speaking.
Oh, Russ
Yeah,
got
we're-
Wait,
capped.
what?
We're almost
Two.
at 2 hours. Anyways, we can wrap it up. But yeah, the English we speak
Yay.
now, the current like dialect in another 1,000 years will be totally different.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh, yeah. It definitely will. Because look how much it's changed from 100 years ago.
Hmm.
If you look through like a 1900s slang dictionary, you won't know any of them.
Oh, I actually do know an older slang word.
Yeah, you might know a
Didn't,
couple, but
oh, what's his name? Shakespeare came up with the word sink. A bunch of weird stuff.
don't know. But it's said that he came up with hundreds or thousands of words or something like that.
I don't know why it's probably going to go down again. But no, I just remembered like an interesting quote where World War I was fought in the trenches. World War II.
It didn't last long.
Don't know what World War III will be fought with, but 4 will be sticks
No,
and stones.
World War III will be fought with nukes, but yeah. Was it Albert Einstein?
Yeah.
I don't know what World War III will be fought with, but World War IV will be fought with sticks and stones.
But back to the old slang words. One of my favorite from I think it might be like the 1700s over in England is cockwomble. Yeah, it's basically just a very foolish or obnoxious person. And I started using that word when Erica and I were traveling the country. When I'd see people driving like idiots, I'd be like, "Oh, you fucking cockwomble."
Oh man, that's hot as shit.
Well, we can wrap it up. We're at an hour and 56 minutes.
Yeah, 2 hours.
Yeah.
That's about what we've been doing recently. I think the 2 hour mark is like perfect because some of ours have been like 3.5.
Yeah.
And
Alright.
yeah,
Dude, that's why like I saw one episode pop up on my suggested from the whatever podcast, and it was like 6.5 hours.
I don't understand how they sit there for that long.
Oh, I mean, if you
Yeah.
have like lazy boys and you're just sitting there like a smoke sesh or something and just kind
Yeah.
of vibing, I could see 6 hours.
I
but-
do want to watch one of his on like double speed and just see how many times they take. You have to take breaks.
Oh yeah,
I
he
don't
allows
care
he
how
allows
long-
his guests to get up and
Yeah.
go
Yeah,
to the bathroom.
You'd have to have a
and-
15, like a maybe a 10,
Yeah.
10 15 minute interval, yeah.
Otherwise, that just, bro, that's an entire day's worth of 6 hours. That's a
Mhm.
shift of work.
Yeah.
Like that don't make no sense. Who would be willing? Oh yeah, I did like that draft that you threw into ChatGPT. That's probably a really good one.
Yeah, I can print those out. I got it
What do we
saved on my
do?
phone, so
Oh, yeah.
I don't know. He's a teacher, so on Mondays,
Yeah.
unless he has a day off from school, I want to try to get him on here to have
It would
the
have to be
free.
like a holiday.
Yeah, I want to get him on here to have the free will versus determinism debate, because that's one thing he loves debating about is the free will determinism thing.
We'll have to look on a calendar at future dates and see if there's any big.
I mean,
It seems
there's a
most
couple.
holidays land on a Monday.
There's a
That's
couple.
what
In,
it seemed like
there's a
lately.
couple in February. I think he'll have a 4-day weekend for President's Day or whatever it is, or one of the president's birthdays
Yeah.
or whatever. But you want to cut the outro?
Yeah.
Chuck it.
Yeah, we what did we talk about today? Bunch of nonsense.
Bunch of nonsense.
Bunch of nonsense. But yeah, well, seemed pretty good. Good episode. Bunch of interesting topics. What are we doing next week?
Next week I won't be here.
Oh yeah,
Erica's
13th.
birthday.
Yeah, you said the
Yeah.
Oh,
weekend
yeah,
of the 13th won't be here, but we'll have 2 weeks to come up with some kind of topics to do.
I'm waiting on a couple of phone calls to see if people will finally be available.
Yeah, because I wouldn't mind getting some kind of artist on like
Yeah.
like one of the
So there's a
people that
music
do mural.
there's a music artist from Elmira that I want to reach out to and see if he'd ever be interested in coming on.
Lucky me.
No, at one point, this individual, one of his songs was actually like #1 on Spotify over in South Korea.
Oh, you
That's
were
dope.
saying that.
Yeah, his
That's a
artist
tough
name.
crowd too.
yeah,
South Korea.
His artist
That's tough.
name is Jake Daniels.
Jake Daniels. That'd be cool.
Yeah, look, my favorite song by him is called God,
Yeah, I'll
or I'm a God.
Fitting.
It's one of the two.
I'll have to see what kind of music he does. All
Lucky
right, yeah,
me.
we'll wrap it up. Don't forget to like, comment, share, subscribe, tell your friends, tell us what we're doing wrong, right.
Tell us how much you love the welcome and the
Goodbye.